Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Women Together. It's wonderful to see us all coming in. I've just been watching the little numbers and everybody in the chat saying hello. So if you haven't done so already, you can say hello and just say where you're coming from or where you are. I am calling in from New York and just north of the city. And I feel like I've been giving weather updates, but as a reminder, my name is Antoinette, and I'm the host of Women Together. And it's a bit chilly here, so we made it through summer, at least here in New York. I know that there are many coming in from all over, and it's wonderful to see the different places and spaces. And it's Tuesday, which is new for us too. We typically gather on Thursdays, but we're trying out Tuesdays for this season, and we'll see how that goes. But it's a joy to see everybody. I just put it in gallery view and I scroll through and just see everybody's faces, and it's just wonderful to be all together again in this way. And to all of our YouTubers who I cannot see, but I send warm greetings to you as well. So, whether you've joined our Women Together sessions week by week, or if you are just joining for the first time, warm welcome. And just holding space for all of the different places that we may be in. There's so much up in the air. We know that many of us are calling in from the United States, and that the west coast of the United States is facing horrendous crisis, and just holding that wherever you are, whether you are sheltering in place or you are able to go out and choosing to stay inside and be here with us, or if you're outside, I see some sky behind some of us. So wherever you may be, and whatever place or space you may be calling in from and joining in from, we are holding together. We are holding all of your different places and spaces. So welcome. And Terry, we see you, and being in Seattle and the heavy smoke, we hope that you can find a comfortable place to breathe. And yeah, so with that, maybe we just take a moment of stillness and land here in whatever place you're in, and holding all the different places and spaces, and best wishes for sunshine and clear skies soon. But either way, just thinking about what our internal weather is. So coming into that place inside, and maybe letting go of what might be going on outside, and just landing here in this place, wherever you are, in this body. So the way that we do that is with just a little moment of stillness. And we've been coming together week after week and just being together in that place, the inner space. So if you can land both feet on the ground, if that feels comfortable for you, close your eyes or lower your gaze. And just go inwards for a moment. Perhaps feel a little sense of uplift in the spine. Just tuning into the breath. And I'll ring the chime to begin our moment of stillness, and I'll ring the chime to bring us back. Thank you all for taking that little moment of stillness and just returning back to our screen and to our connection with each other. Um, it's interesting, that place of being sort of just going inwards and going connecting to the breath can really be a beautiful just little moment. And for those of you who don't know, we have these singing bowls in Eileen Fisher conference rooms, and I've been saying all spring and summer that we had to take them home, which hasn't been the worst thing in the world, but we have these singing bowls at home, and it sort of just helps us land, whether it's in between meetings, in between Zoom calls, going from one task to the next, just ringing the sound of the bell and being with that sound for a moment and being with the breath and then continuing on to whatever the next thing is, can be really useful. And today we're really here to just reconnect with each other because it's been a couple weeks. Normally we do this every week, or we had been doing this every week. We'll continue to do this every week, and we'll continue to come together and recenter around different themes. So get ready for that. And I love the thumbs up. So, just we're ready to reconnect with each other, and also to really center back into ourselves. And the main, reasons that we started this connection was really to have a practice space for us as a community. So we were doing in person and hybrid online events, and it was really fantastic way to just get in our bodies and share some of the practices that had worked for Eileen and for us, in that Eileen Fisher ecosystem, and to be able to share that out more broadly. So sometimes it's the practices that really help us, sometimes it's just being together in silence. And the best part is to be able to connect with each other and just hear our stories and to share with one another and reflect together and sort of make sense of everything that's going on together. And of course, when COVID hit and all of the different I want to say crises, but adventures, at the same time of 2020, we've been able to come together and just reconnect and recenter and land together. And that has really meant something. And for Eileen, she says, there's really just a particular energy that happens when women come together. And I find that to be particularly true, and especially in these Zoom calls, it's been pretty amazing how often, we sit in circle, and we can go a lot of different ways in our direction and our conversation with each other. But if we imagine this Zoom call and YouTube connection as our circle, and really widening our circle of connection and perspective, then something really shifts in our community. So wonderful to be together in this way. And today, specifically, is really about centering. So, for a moment, perhaps we just check in the chat and share an intention for today, perhaps around centering. And I'll just say that on my end of this, I have found it extremely difficult to stay centered. And I'll talk a little bit about what centering means to me, but I'd love to hear from you. So if you take a moment, at the bottom of the screen, if you're on a computer, it says chat. If you're on the phone, it's a little bit trickier, but you can still get to it. And you can click on chat and just type into the chat, the same thing in YouTube in the comment section. You can just type in what centering means to you, or what intention you have for today around centering over the next hour that we have together. So I'll give it a minute just to come in. Beautiful. So just seeing some of them start to come in, that centering means getting quiet and getting back to myself. Sarah says, being able to be in the moment fully. Summer, being still and content with things as they are and shall be. They're saying, For me, it's being balanced, focused in the important things, being present. Jennifer, remembering to breathe, remembering that these are not normal times and we do not need to be normal. Yes. Sandra, staying centered is a daily practice during these times. I meditate every day when I get up and before going to sleep. Happiness. Grace Ann, centering provides an emotional focus. Amy, centering means starting with formal meditation with our Dharma teachers every morning, and then the day starts off well. Oh, Judy, new puppy. Centering is all around her today. I love it. On YouTube, we have Inez, remove distractions, clearing, listening within, integration. Oh, Sarah, missed our Women Together sessions, which have been instrumental in staying centered during these months. Yeah. I definitely felt the absence in the last 2 weeks of these connections. It's sort of this moment that I prepare for. I noticed even in my week, that I kind of prepare for it or feel the community and what's going on and feel my own, sort of roller coaster in it all. But beautiful. Myra says it means slowing down and truly listening to my body and mind. My intention for today is letting wisdom in to help guide me. Thank you. Lois, being still and finding myself in breathing. Beautiful. So many wonderful comments. Thank you all. So I wanted to share one of my favorites, who I think you all, many of you have met before, is Wendy Palmer. She's done some work with us in person, and she came in early on in our Zoom calls, but she recently published her book, Dragons and Power, and I can put that in the chat for you, but she talks a lot about centering, and she believes that everything has to come from a place of center. And what's fascinating about her version of center is that it's not going to a place inside the body. It's not going into a particular, I'm going into my heart center or going into the breath in a particular way. She actually says it's about a state of being. So she calls center is a state of being, not a place in the body. And it shifts our state of being from our separate, individuated self to an expansive, interconnected self. So what does that mean, or what does it actually feel like? But the idea of it is when we sort of go into this moment of stillness or something, it can be a quick thing, but just kind of going, it's almost, she would say it's actually not going in, but the idea would be that the way that we come back to our bodies, come back for a moment, we come back to the breath, we find a sense of uplift in the spine, and then we expand ourselves outward. It means that we're not just coming back to what's coming at us. It's really connecting out to the idea of being an interconnected being. And she talks about how all of our atoms, all of our particles are actually all connected. It's actually all stardust, and that's really what we're connecting back into. So we're centering into being present on the planet and having a vertical connection rather than a horizontal connection. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a session on responding rather than reacting. But just to say, the basics of that is that when we're not centered, we're often just reacting to something. We're often just saying, this thing is coming at me, this thing is coming at me, and I'm just going to deal with it in this way that I typically deal with it, and I typically know how to deal with it. And the reality is that's just sourcing this one singular individuated body, this individuated self, and everything that I've learned how to do, which is typically a pattern that lives in our muscles. So if someone's saying blah, 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 my reaction is going to be blah, blah, blah right back. And when I can come back to center, I can uplift a little bit. I can pause and just find myself reconnecting. It's almost like I'm leaning back into thin air, but into the universe, into, being held by something that's more than just this body. And so that experience of feeling centered, that allows us to show up in a different way. So I love what Paula just shared. She said NASA scientists just discovered some stardust around Venus and that there may be some living matter there. Perhaps we are part of it. And that's the fascinating thing, that we're all part of everything and everything is part of us. So it's a moment by moment thing. It's not I get centered and then I'm good with everything. And it's what I was saying earlier is that I'm having trouble staying centered in part because I feel that either it's my phone, it's my email, it's something, it's social media, it's whoever needs something from me in that moment. And because things are opening back up here in New York, it's constant. There's constantly something. And regardless, even if it's just digital, there's constantly something to respond to and to deal with. So, what do I need to do to actually stay centered? It's definitely not a one-time thing. So, Wendy says that we actually need to. I love Hillary's quote. She said, I have a sign above my desk that says, I recenter and reground myself throughout the day. So, just kind of being with what's coming up, being with what's going on. And that's obviously, what Wendy talks about. She calls it low grade threat. So she's a martial artist. And so this is kind of what's the low grade threat? It's the kind of, and it doesn't mean that many of us aren't dealing with much deeper grade threats. But how do we deal with that sort of constant reality and the ground kind of moving under our feet? So what she says is changing muscle groups changes the hormones that are stimulated, which actually changes the brain function. So changing the body changes the brain. So what we'll do is just a little practice with that. So just shifting our body, which we've done a few times before, but it's always worth repeating. She says it takes 10,000 times to gain even close to a level of mastery. So if we just do it every few moments in the day, that could help. So the idea is first we'll just do a kind of, a posture that you sort of normally get into, so let's just do our triggered response posture, triggered reaction posture, which for me is like my shoulders get tight, my head comes down, I'm almost in like fight mode. We all have fight, flight, or freeze, somebody else's might be like, oh, but yeah, get into that posture, whatever it is, and just hold that for a moment. So whether it's shoulders coming up, it's head coming down, maybe you get small and you don't want to deal with what's coming up, but just kind of get into that physical embodiment of that experience. Just physical embodiment. And just hold that for a moment. And then perhaps just soften one little part of the body, just soften that one part. And let the air come in, let the breath come in. Relax the hands. Relax the arms and the shoulders. Find some uplift in the spine. Soften the gaze. And expand your presence out. Perhaps that means physically actually expanding your arms out a little bit. Wendy talks about long fingers, long neck, long spine. And just feeling for a moment that reconnection. It's reconnecting with the world around you, the universal energy, however you think about this. Just reconnecting and expanding your presence out. And perhaps you think of something that makes you smile. Just one little thing. And from this place, anything that comes at you just kind of moves right around you. Just let it, like raindrops on oil, just fall right away. And just for a moment to remind ourselves how easy this is, just go back into that triggered response physical reality for a moment. just visit that place again. I know it's like, oh, why would I do that? Just to practice, just to practice. So come back into that place, shoulders up, head down, and then open back up. Inhale, uplift the spine. Exhale, expand out. Think of something that makes you smile. There it is. It's like the whole Zoom room just changed. Just the whole energy of everyone. It's awesome. It's just knowing that we have this ability in any moment to expand, to uplift, to think of something that makes us smile, that no matter what's coming at us, we have this ability to bring that interconnectedness through us. And from this place, we'll just do a little breathing exercise. So we'll breathe in any of the irritation or concerns and breathe out appreciation, gratitude, or generosity for 6 seconds. So we'll breathe in the irritation and concerns just for 3, and we'll breathe out the appreciation, gratitude, or generosity for 6. So inhale, breathing in irritation, concerns, and exhale out for 6, appreciation, generosity, gratitude. And I'll just do a count for us. Breathing in, irritation, 2, 3. Breathing out, gratitude, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, irritation, concerns, 2, 3. Breathing out, appreciation, gratitude, generosity, 4, 5, 6. One more, inhaling irritation and concerns, 2, 3, and then exhaling out appreciation, gratitude, generosity, 4, 5, 6. And just staying with whatever is coming up for you in that moment. And perhaps you have a journal nearby. I love to keep them just right next to me. I have a little pile of journals, which is probably don't need all of them, but at least one. It could be a piece of paper. It could be whatever way you want to just jot some notes down. But often the journal actually helps us. There we go. I see the journals popping up. The journal helps us move from this mental place. So I was talking with a friend the other day who just said, it's just so helpful for me to talk it out, for me to just get out the words, because when it's in my mind, it's almost not even real. And I find that when I write it down physically, something also changes there too. So there's a kind of, it actually moves out of this mental loop kind of thing, and it moves into a piece of paper. So I can have an idea that having gratitude is a great way to, but until I write it down, sometimes it doesn't actually shift. So yes, let's for a moment, I'll give a couple of journaling questions, and hopefully all of my chatter has allowed you to find a journal and maybe a pen, or at the very least a place to type. And I'll ask 4 different questions. So for the first question, what came up for you in your centering practice? Perhaps it was, oh, right, I can do this. Or, anything else. Maybe there's something specific that made you smile. But what came up for you in your centering practice? And just the next question, When do you lose your center? When is it that you actually lose your center? And just from this place, identifying it and writing it down. When is it that I lose my center? Perhaps it's a person, but a situation, a person. And the next question, what could you do to regain center in a trying situation? So when you have this kind of trying situation, what could you actually do? Perhaps it's actually physical. Like for me, I've noticed that if I actually physically step back, then I can gain my center. I have to remember to physically step back. Eileen talks about wiggling her toes. So there's typically always something that kind of brings us back online. It's like, oh yeah, okay. But what is that thing for you? Is there something that you could identify? And it's okay if you start with, I don't know, or watermelon until something comes out. But what is it that you could do to begin to regain center in trying situations? Okay, and the last thing is there a word or a phrase that you could use to remind yourself? So is there a word or a phrase? I love the little like smirks that come up when I ask this question of like, uh-huh. So is there a word or phrase that you could use to remind yourself in those moments? Wonderful. So I hope you've gotten at least a few thoughts jotted down. Um, and what we'll do is we'll take the best part of our Women Together Connect is we will take this time to connect with each other. So if you've joined us in Zoom, we're going to turn to each other and have some breakouts where we'll just share a little bit of what came up. And you can start by sharing your name and where you're coming from, what's up for you, and we'll give you close to 20 minutes for this connection time. So a little over 15, and then we'll come back to a large group conversation. So for those of you um, who are on YouTube, it's been wonderful to be together, and we'll see you again next week on Tuesday. And for those of you in Zoom, I am so excited for you to join breakout groups and to discuss just what came up for you and what could you use to bring yourself back to center. So enjoy your time together, and I look forward to seeing you again when we get back into our large Zoom room. Enjoy.